Hey, everybody, welcome to the Storytellers. Tonight we have a very special guest, a guy who I consider one of the premier visual storytellers in comics today. He's been around a long time. His father is a legend. He is a legend. And I think this guy is amazing. And let's bring him right into the room right now. We can get right going with the questions and have some fun. John Romita Jr., welcome to the Storytellers, sir.
Hi, Graham. Thanks very much for reading that intro that I wrote for you. I appreciate it.
I hope I didn't mispronounce anything,
No. Thank you. Very nice of you to say those things. That was very nice. Thank you.
Well, I mean it. I'm not the kind of guy that blows smoke up skirts. But I really do think that your storytelling is unbelievable. And I was talking to somebody recently on one of my other shows. We were talking about John Buscema and how John Buscema was one way when he was working at Dell. When he came over to Marvel and he was told by Stan to study Kirby and got what I call Kirby-fied and became the John Buscema we know, he became like the heir apparent to the Kirby dynamics. Mm-hmm. But you, I think, take it a step further, because where John brought in Hal Foster meets Kirby, you brought the cartooning aspect that Kirby brought into his work, and then you took his dynamics and brought it into a modern linear style. So I think that's what I find so amazing about your work, is when you're doing like these massive kind of powerful stories like Thor, the Eternals, those kind of things, that it really, really shines. Because I mean, there's so few guys that can do that kind of stuff, and you kill that.
That's so nice of you to say the way you just said it, and it's amazing that you seem to be the first person that has put it that way that I've spoken to. Interestingly enough, it did happen in that way, because I was brought up watching my father draw, but then as I got into the industry, I got a chance to watch Kirby and Don Heck and Al Williamson and so on. But when I got attention paid to Kirby from my father's point of view, that's what happened. It was the dynamics, the visual dynamics, Bern Hogarth's dynamic anatomy, but it was Kirby and his style. His storytelling wasn't this as special as you might imagine people saying. What it was the dynamics of the storytelling. He took things completely off the charts dynamic-wise. And the storytelling was still there. But if you recall, he took great leaps just like a lot of guys did. There were some gaps in storytelling that you couldn't stop. Romita Sr. did it. A lot of guys did it. Buscema did it. What happened with me was I got told by Jim Shooter once that you have to over storytell as a young artist because you're not good enough to amaze people with your art. Okay, so I was terrified right off the bat. So you have to over storytell, and you got to learn this. Now I had been learning things, little tricks from my father, and I remember in college I had been taught design courses. Not taught design, but I was studying design, and all of it started to congeal when I got told to over establish by Jim Shooter to tell stories. My father was telling me about linear, sequential art and watching movies with him, and I had one of my only possible brilliant moments where everything congealed in my head, and it occurred to me what I was doing. I think I know what I'm doing, but then I had to work on the art. Then I had to work on getting the dynamics of Kirby and the beauty of Buscema and Romita Sr. I'm still working on it. I'm trying to get to it. But the way you just put it is so fascinating because it hadn't been put to me that way. There was that process to a lot of people and a lot of artists. Mm-hmm. Buscema got that gung-ho, you got to do what Kirby did, what the Kirby's doing, that dynamic. And he's just a brilliant illustrator, John Buscema was.
Right.
And he did add some of it, but he was more of a brilliant, beautiful illustrator. And you can ask anybody when he would send his pages in. On the backs of his pages, you must have heard this story. When I was working on staff just as an assistant under Roy Thomas on staff as a production assistant, I would get the pages coming in from John Buscema. They were breakdowns, and he was lightning fast. On the backs of the pages, according to him, his words, he was warming up in the morning. The most beautiful illustrations you have ever seen. and we would photocopy them on a mimeograph machine, and I had stacks like this, and I would hand them out to people, and then he would work and do his breakdowns. So, but his dynamics were less so than Kirby, and I don't think he really grabbed it as much as a lot of people wanted. But his illustrations are so beautiful, and he was more than an adequate storyteller. It just was stunning. The Conan stuff, it goes without saying.
Oh yeah, yeah. I have actually, I've got a couple of his Doc Savage magazine pages that Tony DeZuniga had inked, and on the back side, there's some sketches of Tarzan that he had done on the back side of them. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
DeZuniga, can't believe you brought up that name. I got a chance to see that stuff too. Oh man, beautiful illustrations. What a brilliant artist DeZuniga was. Ernie Chan, Ernie Chua, Alfredo Alcala, all of those guys came in.
Yeah, all those guys that came from the Philippines. I think they're from the Philippines. Yeah. Did
Alfredo Alcala come from the Philippines too? Or was he from South America? I forgot.
I think he's from the Philippines. In fact, I think it was his studio that Carmine Infantino had gone to when they were trying to unionize, and he was trying to union bust, and had gone down there and brought back a lot of those guys.
Okay.
That would have been right in the early 70s.
Yep. Anyway, see, I'm dragging you off into a tangent. I apologize.
No, not at all. No, this is all part of what we do on the Storytellers. We're talking about storytellers, and
that storytelling bit that I mentioned about Jim Shooter. A lot of people had their complaints about Jim Shooter, but when he told myself and a couple of other young guys, the trick to telling a story is to establish every 2 pages or so, or every page and a half. And we thought he was whipping us, beating us. But the truth of the matter was, if you're drawing and you think you're doing something fancy and it veers from what you're trying to tell, you've got to bring it right back into the story by establishing the end. And then that combined with my father telling me, look how beautiful that vista is in that film. And there's still voices coming from off camera.
Right.
He said, that's how you know you're telling a great story, is when you still are in the moment and yet you're off on this beautiful vista. I don't know how many movies I watched with him as a young guy when it occurred to me, and I brought that into the storytelling. That's when Jim Shooter's words combined with what my father had taught me watching films. I said, holy mackerel, I understand this. I have a grasp. Now all I got to do is learn how to draw.
Now, did you ever see a film called The Big Country?
I can't believe you brought that. I was just about to say it. Yes.
The fight sequence.
Gregory Peck.
Yep, the fight sequence where he pulls the camera back like a mile away, and you see these 2 little figures,
and you hear the sound effects. Yep. Yes.
The little sound effects, because they're so far away to show the insignificance of man within the landscape.
That was The Big Country, and literal. Now I have used that scene from that movie in conversations many times discussing storytelling. And that is one of those brilliant moments where you pull back and you still hear the fight. Thud, 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 thud. Oh, great stuff. Excellent.
How can we get two geniuses in one room? It's amazing.
Amazing. I just love, because that's the kind of film. Listen, when there was just 3 networks when I was a kid, that's the kind of film my father would sit my brother and I on a rainy weekend night, sit us in front of the television, and we just talk about it. Have an ice cream soda or something like that, and he would talk to us. My brother didn't care as much as I did, but he would explain things to me. He would explain film noir to me, On the Waterfront, those scenes that you'd pull back on, see a cityscape, or The Big Country. That's the kind of thing that I learned when I got older, that was what I needed to bring into my abilities, along with dynamic art.
Right.
So it's fantastic that you brought that movie up. It's a perfect example. Excellent.
So you find yourself drawn to the storytellers in comics and illustration, or whatever it may be, whatever those influences may be, as opposed to the fancy illustrators. Let's say like a John Buscema or a Neil Adams, who is much more about the image in the panel than he was about the storytelling that followed. Because
I didn't mention Neil. Good mention. That Neil Adams is another brilliant illustrator. Exactly.
Yeah, his stuff is gorgeous to look at, but sometimes he loses me. I mean, the three great tenets for me in storytelling is clarity, dynamics, and immersion. And you have to be clear to immerse the reader, and then the dynamics pull you back, pull you and
Well
keep
said.
you into the
Well
story.
put. Well put.
And some of those guys, some of the illustrator guys, are too busy being fancy with their panel layouts and all that, and all the noodling in the drawing. And I don't care if the figure is perfect. What I want is the power and the energy, and I want to know exactly what that figure is doing within that landscape or space, so that I'm into that story.
And if you bring the brilliant illustration, a brilliant artist, and you combine that with the great storytelling, they become a director, basically.
Yes.
I still haven't reached the point where I said, all right, now my art is as good as my storytelling. I don't think it is.
Mm-hmm.
However, my storytelling sometimes improves my art in that, do that scene as in The Big Country. And people will say, wow, what a great moment. And they're not paying attention to the fact that I don't know how to draw the hills of Nebraska or whatever it is. It's almost like a prestidigitation, I'm look at this while I'm doing something over here, sleight of hand. If they pay attention to the storytelling, my art, which is not as good as I want it to be, is not paid attention to. Somebody will say to me, great story, love that story. Instead of saying, wow, I love panel 3 on page 14. That was fantastic. I'd rather have the former than the latter. So yes, you make a great point, and certain illustrators are only illustrators, not storytellers.
As soon as somebody says, I like panel 3 on page 14, you've already lost them.
There you go.
They're not immersed in the story. They are concerned about they've stopped reading the story. It's pulled them back into the real world for a second, and they're now noticing the artwork, and it should be invisible. It should be totally immersive.
Can't see the forest for the trees. Yeah. I agree with you completely. Yes.
And what you do so wonderfully, and you really did it in the Daredevil thing you did with Frank Miller, Man Without
Fear. Thank you.
The way you never did angle panels or crazy panel arrangements. They were pretty straight on, almost like storyboards, and it read like and felt like a film when you read it. You had establishment shots. You had great environments. Okay, so maybe some of those buildings aren't exactly the way a New York building looks, but it doesn't matter. They're your New York buildings. So I'm completely immersed in that. I'm sucked into your world, and that's all great artists do. Is that it? You know what? It brings up a question I wanted to ask you, because you said my drawing isn't as good as it should be. Well, but that's irrelevant to the story that you're telling, because the drawings are yours. They're your world. They're your environments. And if the story is told well, the reader's sucked in, and it doesn't matter whether the Nebraska hills look exactly like a Nebraska hill, or whether the reader knows that, okay, that's his Nebraska hill.
Excellent. Good points. And interestingly enough, speaking about Man Without Fear, Frank and I both, at that time of our careers, now he was huge at the time and becoming the screenwriter for the RoboCop films, but the two of us were not known as flashy artists per se, or accurate or wonderful artists per se. We were kind of storytellers with style. His style, much more glaring than mine. Mine was the deadline style, get it done on time, and that's good enough. But the two of us talked about it as a film because it had been a treatment for a film. And the two of us talked about it that way. And we mentioned the fact that Kirby did just plain old rectangular panels or square panels. You don't pay attention to the angles, you pay attention to what's inside of those panels. And the two of us discussed it that way. We'd rather have the big action shots that would run across rooftops.
Right.
And we were on the same panel, so to speak. We're on the same page, the two of us, and we had a blast doing it. And it's, to this day, overall, one of my complete products that I'm very proud of. Overall, complete. There's always something to complain about, but there's something about this. I've loved it so much, and I got a copy of it behind me, and I always look at it.
Nice.
That's the great part about working with Frank.
Did Al Williamson ink that?
Yes, he did. Okay. Another big advantage to working with brilliant illustrators. They save your ass on a regular basis.
But you know,
He said such nice. Go ahead, sorry.
I was just going to say he's invisible in that. I don't see Al Williamson in there. Oh, I see John Romita Jr. in that.
I appreciate that. They were tight pencils, and he was constantly calling me saying, "I'm really having a good time doing this. Do you mind if I do this?" I said, "What are you asking me for? I should beg you to do this." And he just went through with it and had fun with it, and it went on forever. And I loved everything about it. And again, I got a chance to work with Frank Miller and Al Williamson. That doesn't happen very often to many artists in my business. Now, funny you should mention panel shapes. I am currently working on a project called Schmuggy and Bimbo with Howard Chaykin.
I love Howard.
And Howard and I met. I sent him a treatment, and he turned it into a brilliant product. And the whole story, it's going to be it's going to be 5 issues, but I'm working on the 3rd, is all storyboard shaped. No square panels, no tall panels. The whole thing is movie.
Oh,
and
like a 16 by 9.
Embraced it. That's it. It's all, and it's 4 and 5, possibly 5 tops, storyboards. And it's a storyboard for a film. And this is what I wanted to do. I told him it's going to kill me in a couple of scenes. He said, "Don't let it kill you. Make it work." And Howard being the artist, Frank being the artist, I got a chance to work with brilliant writers who are brilliant artists to begin with. That's Howard. I hope you're watching this. I'm loving every bit of it.
Oh, that's awesome.
He said he's happy what I gave him, and he turned it into a great product.
Howard was one of the first guests on my show.
Excellent. Love Howard.
He was a hoot. Yeah, he was a lot of fun.
The good thing about that product is it was based on 2 guys that grew up with my parents in the 40s, Schmuggy and Bimbo, literal guys. And I told Howard the story, and I sent them the treatment. We talked about it. He said, we should bring it up. Both of us grew up in the 70s. He said, let's bring it into the 70s instead of the 40s. We got more people that would acknowledge what it is.
That's smart.
And he says, and I'll add some of my New York stuff. You have all your New York stuff. You know, I had some of my friends in it. I have names. The names are just, Rocco, Zuko, names you cannot believe are actual people. You got to be careful, because if they were alive, we'd be in trouble. But he added his touch. And he added the Jewish wife to one of the characters. And he added his New York to it. This is what I love about storytelling. When you can control this, you mentioned it before, the storytelling that you can control by bringing in the external imagery, and make sure it's storytelling. Oh my God, I love it. So that's what we're doing with Schmuggy and Bimbo. And there's a couple of scenes in it. He does historical reference to crime, everything from Sherlock Holmes to stuff that goes back to the French, what's his face? I've got the French guy. Brilliant stuff. And it's become this fantastic story. I cannot wait till it becomes a film. And hopefully I'll be alive by the time it comes out.
Now, will this be published?
Yeah, we have to get the 3rd issue done before we can solicit it. And it's 5, according to Howard's script. My treatment did not expect it to go that far, but he made it into 5 stories. I'm going to finish the 3rd issue, and then it'll be solicited. As far as it becoming a graphic novel series before it becomes a production, I don't know. But it would have to be 5 issues before we can send it out, because inside of 3 months, I would be past the 3rd issue. I think we're going to have to finish all 5 in order for it to come out as a graphic novel. But the 3rd issue, which is what I'm working on, we'll see what happens as soon as we get that solicited and get somebody to buy it as a product to produce it.
So right now you don't have a publisher for it?
Well, we have interest.
Okay.
We don't have, I think Image has gotten their hands and their eyes into it, and I'm going to push it past everybody. As a freelancer now, I can push it to anybody I want. But the story is, it's based on 2 guys from the old country, the old school. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's got enough fantasy involved in it that we added to it that makes it just the right amount. As Stan Lee would say, too little of one, you beg for the other. Make sure it's the right balance. So we have just this great balance.
If I can just suggest something to you, consider crowdfunding it. Both you and Howard have big enough names and big enough followings that if you get a campaign together on Indiegogo, you guys will make a killing, and the money will all be yours.
I've heard that conversation proposed to me before. Got to discuss it with Howard. Got to discuss it with our mutual lawyers, and we'll see. If it works out that way, wonderful. As soon as I finish the third issue, we solicit, and then Howard said, "Finish that third issue, and we'll sell this effing thing." And if that's the case, you might be right.
Yeah, well, there's people in the chat saying they'll back it already.
All right. Well, the two guys. The interesting part. I was trying to remember that Schmuggy's actual name was Sonny Santangelo. Now, why would you nickname yourself Schmuggy when your name is Sonny Santangelo? What a great name, Sonny Santangelo.
But you know how that goes, John. You don't give
yourself
nicknames.
I know. And then the original character that was going to be with Schmuggy in this was Schmuggy and Booney. But Booney's Booney's family still had surviving members. And I wasn't going to use that name and get myself in trouble and have fear starting my car up. You know what I'm saying? So we grabbed the guy that now everybody's long since passed. And the stories I heard from my uncles and my father and my aunts and my mother about these two guys who actually protected the neighborhood while they were doing their collecting. They actually took care of my parents and that neighborhood. So their hearts were there. And when we heard these stories as a kid, you know, some of them were unbelievable what they did. But when we heard these stories, that made it warm to me. And that's when I wrote down everything I could about the stories we heard. And here we are talking about storytelling and Howard and his abilities. And it just all it just combined into this great product. I cannot wait to get done with it. I overtold some imagery, and Howard says he loves it anyway. And if Howard says he loves something, he's telling you the truth because he's not easy to please.
Oh, that is for certain. That's great. So what are some of your favorite characters that you've worked on? Or did you have a favorite character growing up that you didn't get to work on?
Oh, great question. The characters that I love working on, interestingly enough, the first one was Daredevil, because as a kid, the cover that blew the top of my head off was Daredevil number 12 with Kazar and the tree and the plunderer surrounding Daredevil. And my father explained to me what a superhero was. I had seen the comic books in the barber shop as a kid. Never really read them because they were on the table or on the floor and whatever it was. I saw the Metal Man, I saw Superman. But when he started drawing something other than romance books, I walked up and in the middle of the night, because there were monsters under my bed, I said, "Dad, I got to come up. I'm sorry." He was up in the attic. Save me from the monsters. Vic's still sleeping. My brother, he wasn't doing anything. So I ran up. You know, you pull the ladder down, the old Queen's houses.
Yeah.
The ladder down, ran up, and I must have had tears in my eyes. He stopped. He hadn't slept in 2 days, and we got into the conversation about that cover, which was on his drafting table. Apparently, my tears stopped and my mouth dropped open, and I said, "What is this?" And then he explained what a superhero was. And oh, by the way, this guy's going to beat up all of the guys in that circle around him, and he's blind. And that's what happened to me, was learning that. But that's the kind of thing that I unconsciously let happen and loved everything about it. So in answer to some of your future questions, that's what got me into this, that excitement about the different, going from romance comics to superheroes.
Okay. All right. But okay. So Daredevil was your inroad.
My favorite because of that. Yes.
That's your favorite character.
I would say to draw.
Okay.
If I had to choose a character that I think is the best character of all time, the Spider-Man, Superman, Batman. I'd pick Spider-Man because overall it combines everything I love about comics. But the fact that Superman's been around forever and was started with nothing before it, that's genius. That's brilliance.
Right.
Spider-Man is based on Superman. Stan's imagination turned him from a perfect character into a Jewish kid who gets the crap beat out of him all the time in Queens. Red and blue. He works at a newspaper. He's a photographer. Stan knew what he was doing, but turned him into an imperfect character. So it was based on the Superman ethos. So Superman's got to be up there, but I have to choose Spider-Man. And Batman is right there with Daredevil as far as drawing. Love drawing both of those characters. And everybody that draws both of them knows why. They're great silhouettes. brilliant silhouettes. But Spider-Man overall, he's a kid from Queens, just like me. After I was born in Brooklyn, I was raised in Queens. So
there it is.
Peter Parker's got to be a good guy.
That's very cool. So how do you approach a script? Like when you get a script from Howard, is he sending you a full script?
It depends. Sometimes I tell the writer, excuse the expression, tell the writer. I ask the writer to just send me a plot with the dialogue, but I don't actually demand it. Now, Howard's brilliant, and I said to him, you send me what you want. I don't care if it's stream of consciousness. I'll work it out. And we knew each other from, many decades. I did the same thing with Frank. I didn't demand that they do either or. I just said, send it to me, and as long as you don't have any, take any offense, if I call you and say, I want to turn this scene this way, I won't take stuff out. I will add stuff. And if they're okay with it, even Neil Gaiman said, you do whatever you want with what I give you. I know what you can do. It's okay. Consider it a hybrid, half script, half plot. And while Howard didn't say that, he sent me a plot with dialogue, and it works fine for me. And as long as they allow me to do what I want with it to a certain extent, but I tell them via phone or email, I'm going to play with this. Do you mind? I'm not going to just, hit them over the head with it and say, oh, by the way, I've changed this whole scene out, and here it is being published, and you didn't know it. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to discuss it with them too. But it's kind of a hybrid is what I get at this point.
Mm-hmm. Did you, most of the scripts at Marvel back when you were there were probably the traditional Marvel method, plot.
Correct. Yes.
And then you went over to the DC, and I'm assuming they were full scripts by then at DC.
Here's an interesting part. It changed the other way around. It went to softer scripts. Now, I work with scripts. I work with Chris Claremont as a kid with X-Men and a couple other, because I was young and they needed to lead me through. But starting on Daredevil, I was given plots, and everybody in the industry at that point was using plots to get their storytelling bona fides. But at this point, and varying degrees, I would get scripts, but I was allowed to play with them as long as I would discuss it with the writer. And Marvel was plot. It was the Marvel way, so to speak. When I got to DC, it was, I hate to say that they gave me some latitude, but because I was a storytelling guy, they said, don't feel restricted by a script. But I worked with Jeff Johns. How do you don't have to worry about that. And some of the writers that I worked with were just genius. And they just said, stick with what you do best and let me know what you're going to do with it. And then we'll adjust dialogue if we have to. If not, we'll go with it.
Right.
And I've been very lucky. I'm also older than all the guys I work with. That's another reason why they bow to me.
Well, they know you're a damn good storyteller. So yeah,
I have to tell you, when you get a compliment from Neil Gaiman and Howard Chaykin and Frank Miller, that is the same conversation. We know what you can do as a storyteller, and you knock yourself out, and just don't worry about what you do to us. Almost in conjunction, they said the same words, but as a true compliment, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm always curious about what guys like to do. I mean, we spend untold hours sitting at these boards. You mentioned your dad up all night, going up into the attic, to escape the monsters under your bed. And your dad was not a speed demon. He was no John Buscema when it came to banging out pages.
That is correct.
He suffered over those pages, and they all looked amazing. I mean, there's no bigger fan of your father's work than me. He was one of my initial inspirations.
Appreciate that.
But and I got to meet him, and he was just a wonderful guy. He's just a sweetheart.
That's an interesting. Let me just one little anecdote. Yeah. Because he struggled with his speech so much, and he gave a pint of blood in each book. That's what he said, and he used that as a way to tell me, do not get into this business. When I was coming out of advertising illustration curriculum, he said, go into advertising. Are you out of your effing mind? Don't do what I do. Look. And he had a 2-day growth, hadn't slept. So you're right. He did struggle with his speed.
Where I was going with that is that even a guy who is fast like yourself, you spend a lot of time at the board, but you must have passions and interests outside of comics and drawing. And
Yes,
I'm
sir.
always fascinated by what guys in the business do to unwind, to clear their heads. So basically, what's your gig? What do you like to do?
Well, I'm very fortunate in that I am the best at this. Is I have the greatest wife on the face of the planet, my wife Kathy, because she puts up with me. That's it. She's got her gold star over here, and she puts up with me. She knew meeting me at the convention that things were different. However, what I do becomes uh, to take my mind off the insanity of the hours. I work out, and that's because my wife, who was previously in a previous life, was an amateur bodybuilder and
Ah,
competed. So I learned a lot from her. Her oldest son, whom I helped raise, is also a bodybuilder. So I go to the gym a lot. And whether it's vanity or just sheer the memory of my father saying, "Do not let yourself go like I did. Take care of yourself." That is a passion of mine, is to be in good shape.
mhm.
And it encompasses a lot of things. Food, it changes everything, every part of the habit. But my wife and my son and my sons and her family, my family, that's the other passion, family. And that encompasses a lot. And I anybody that has a family that you care about knows what I'm talking about. So it's taking care of your family first. My
Mhm.
wife and I have a lot of responsibility because both sides need us,
Mhm.
and we embrace it. Absolutely embrace it. And she's got a halo over her head that glows constantly, and anybody that's met her knows exactly what I'm talking about. And she's drop dead gorgeous too. Another part I'm lucky about.
Good points there, dude.
And she's not even listening. She's in the other room.
Oh, maybe she'll listen
Did
in
you
later.
hear She didn't
Extra
hear me. All right.
for you.
She's got to play this back so I can get lucky.
Oh, so
So that's my passion.
are you still under contract with Marvel or DC,
I
or
am I'm a freelancer.
you're a
I'm
freelancer
very
now?
lucky. Yeah, freelancer.
Is that
I
the
have
first time in your career?
uh at this point, the way it is right now, yes, the first time it's been this way.
Interesting.
I think the industry's changed a bit, and now there's creator own stuff to do.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of taking from as much from everywhere and trying to work it out. I'm having a good time, and the good thing about this is I was telling, when I took my wife to get her vaccine, some guy heard my last name while we were in line and said, "Are you the guy that does this?" So while we waited, he asked me how long I've been doing it, and holy shit, 44 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and listen. That's not an easy thing to do. I started when I was 2.
Well, I mean, there is the story that you did start when you were just a kid, like with the whole prowler thing.
Yeah, that's right. 13. Yeah,
You were 13 years old.
I came up with that character at 12 or 13 when it came out. Yeah, that's true.
So
But
you and Cubert and Shooter both started at like 13 years old. Huh?
unbelievable, unbelievable. But the answer to your question is I've been doing it a long time, and I still enjoy everything about it. Again, we talked about the conventions. I
Yeah.
miss it because I miss looking at people face to face at conventions, and they truly love what they're doing. And they truly love talking to you about what you're doing, except for the guy that said, I'm not a big fan of yours, but sign my book anyway.
Yeah.
And
Or
that's,
the guy
you
who
meet those.
always comes up and says, I liked your older stuff better.
Oh, God. But I do. I'm still enjoying it. And my wife said, do it until you don't. And then she says, then become the painter you were when you were in school. So I may yet become a talented painter. I don't know. Got to work on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Right now with the way the industry is morphing, some people are looking at it as a negative, but I have to say that there's no better time than right now to really embrace yourself and push those things, those ideas, those concepts, and those things that you love out there, because the publishing paradigm has shifted completely, and now it's so much easier to get your stuff in front directly to your audience versus having to go through firewalls of distribution and retail.
Good point. And there is a need for content. When Disney and Warner Brothers, whomever was behind that, became that took their products back from the streaming services. There are streaming services that need content. Mark Miller's doing well with Netflix, his product. They're looking for guys like us, and you have to come up with things. So this is a good time for that. And I'm hoping someday, before I'm not too old, if one of them will hit. I got the 2 kick-ass films. I worked on a couple other. I worked on Big Hero 6 and another one. The taste of it is not so much seeing your name on a screen, as much as this is what we started off wanting to do, is make stop action films or films. And I embrace the chance to do that. And you're right. This is a good time.
Yeah. I have never been happier. I've been doing it now for 30, not quite 43 years, but 30, at least 38 years, I think.
Fantastic. I didn't know you were there that long. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And we'll get there eventually.
Well, you know what? You keep slugging, you got to hit a home run eventually.
There you go. I say that in similar, not similar words, but eventually I'm going to get there. Someday I'm going to say to myself, you had a great year. You're the best one in the business. And then I'll suck the next year because I'll have lost all interest. It's not going to happen. Another good thing about this business, you're always humbled. There's always somebody that will humble you. Whether it's a young guy that comes out of Venezuela or one of the other countries that comes up and suddenly, oh my God, this kid is fantastic. Or you get told by your father, listen, there's always somebody bigger, better, stronger, smarter, better looking, and a better artist than you. Deal with it and learn to get better. And that all in one paragraph. That's why Romita feet are always on the ground. And I grew up with a father that I'll never be better than as an artist.
Words of iron there. Words of iron.
There you go. The bar is set, so I'm still trying to get to it. And reaching it is more fun than actually grabbing it. I want to get to it, but I don't want to grab it because I always want to get better.
I couldn't agree more. One of the things for me is that I was always comparing myself to my idols, and I never felt I was good enough. And it took me till I was probably in my 40s where I really got the confidence to look at my work objectively and say, you know what? I can't start second guessing here, because as soon as you are trepidous in any line or concept you put down on the page, the reader sees it immediately. It looks scared and unsure and unconfident. And as soon as you get like a Klaus Janson line and just say, fuck it, bam, I'm throwing down this ink line, take it or leave it. That's when it hits. That's when you're like, shit, now I can experiment. Now I can really move forward.
Well said. And I can't get to that point yet. It's not so much that I'm not confident in what I'm putting down, but I second guess myself all the time. When I do something, even when I'm satisfied with it, I put it down, I cover it up, and then the next morning I come back before I put it into a FedEx box. I look at it and I will correct it. My wife wants to hit me with a bat. She says, remember what some of your idols told you. Do not use your eraser. John Buscema said it. Jack Kirby said it to me. How many pages do you do a day, kid? 1? Throw your effing eraser away, Jack Kirby said. I swear. And then John Buscema said it 10 years later to me. You can't go faster? Get rid of the effing eraser. So when I'm seeing the stuff I've done the night before, I want to just jump in there and make it better. Yeah. And I sometimes do, and sometimes for fear of my wife hitting me with that bat, I will stop and just throw it into the FedEx box. But you're right.
There's a certain amount of truth to that, because in our business, there's always another page. There's always, it's like, again, it's another baseball analogy. Okay, so you get up and you whiff. There's another inning. You'll get another at bat. And what I find from the heavy lifting for me is the actual laying out the story, because that's where all the thought process goes. The drawing part, that's kind of like the contractor coming in and building the house after the foundation has been laid. And so that's the hard part. And for me, when I start laying out stuff, I'll lay it out, but I don't look back. I just keep going. I go through and I know stuff isn't right, but then I keep it moving forward. And then I'll go back to it and say, okay, here's the part where I messed up. This needs to be reworked or something like that. But if you keep it going, it's like those guys said, stop, don't erase, don't overthink, but always keep moving. And
sure,
then,
but you can massage it when you rough things out. Don't you go back when you go to finish? Do you see something you might want to adjust?
oh, absolutely.
Okay, that I'm trying to eliminate the adjust section, the adjust period of my formula. What I mean is when that thought comes to my mind. When I rough it out, I want it to stay that way because there's a certain movement to it. And if I get too anal with it, it drags it down. So I try to leave the spontaneity in it. But that part is so important, is to take in the script. I write out notes in the margins on that script. I do my thumbnailing in words. And when I come back to it after I've gotten all the reference and everything I need to start penciling, I go back to that first little bit of notes on that first page, and I know what to draw because I remember what I was thinking when I first put it down. Whether that's unique to me or not, I don't know. But I know as soon as I write the note saying Spider-Man is perched on a peak and behind him is this, and this coming out of the lower regions, I know exactly what that panel is going to look like. Boom, put it down. Maybe that's unique to me. Maybe I'm just lucky. But I'm trying to avoid the massaging of that rough when I go back to it. What I want to do is go right to the finish, and that's where it says throw away your effing eraser. That's where that comes in. So you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's what drags us down, is overdoing it, getting carried away. And my wife sees it, and she's not from the business. She says you cannot make your time up if you are getting anal retentive. Don't do it. Your father has told you, other artists have told you, you have told yourself.
Smart.
And you know it. Yeah, that's right.
I call that,
than me as well as better looking than me.
I call that analysis paralysis.
Okay.
It just, you analyze, and all of a sudden you're not moving forward anymore because you're.
But at a certain point, you must know that at a certain point you went past that, correct? And you knew what you were putting down was the quality stuff because it came out of you as your first thought.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Like you said, it's almost always the first thought. It's really more a question of the shape of the panels that I'm going to put that image in, and how, in the tiers and all that kind of stuff. But the image that's in my mind if I'm working from somebody else's script versus writing my own stuff, when I read it, I'm reading it and I'm forming that image in my head, and that's what I try to put down.
Do you put notes down, or do you go right to the rough while the script is in front of you or the plot is in front of you?
I do it that way. I just I don't write notes unless it's a story I'm writing for myself. Then I have. What's that?
You do thumbnails, or just go right to the rough?
I thumbnail it, and then on the right hand side, I write my dialogue and captions, so that I have on one page all the stuff that I need, all the imagery and all the text. And then go back.
They're similar. There are similar thought processes in this. I write it down instead of doing little doodles. And what I love is that when I write it, as opposed to the first time I started doing this, where things would change when I went back, what I write down is almost shorthand. Nobody can read it except me, but I know what it is, and it gets me back to the first imagery that came to my mind when I read that first line of that plot or script. And I'm lucky that way because I can't remember what my credit card number is, but I can remember stuff from 2 days ago that I was thinking when I put that first line down about that plot. I love it. I'm lucky that way.
Wait a minute. Who knows your credit card number?
All right, well, you should memorize credit card numbers. You should be able to.
I can't even memorize my passwords.
All right, bad example. My social security number. All right.
Oh, okay.
Edit that out, by the way, since we're talking about editing.
Edit that out. All right, let's pop into the chat room here and see who's here, and I'm sure there's some questions for you, John. Let's see.
All right.
Well, Earth Mind says awesome and looking forward to this one.
Thank you.
Greetings, chat. Let's get to the questions here. Always a lot of hellos and good evenings and that kind of stuff. Oh, here's a guy with some love for you. The GOAT.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's nice. And there's a lot of people that will argue with you on that one, but that's okay.
Here's one for you. How did you evolve your work? You went from a Bob Layton 80s style with one of my favorite Iron Man stories with him versus Dr. Doom to the current style you have now.
That honestly, evolve is a good word. It just happens because I got better as I got older. Sheer repetitive. Listen, Graham, you know this. You do this 12 hours a day, 15 hours a day. You have to improve. And as time passed, I got better. I also had great influences. I also studied. I was a student of art, let alone storytelling. But with Layton and that Iron Man stuff, I wasn't given a lot of input. I was told to do breakdowns. And then Bob said, "I'll fix whatever you put down." He volunteered that. And then when I got onto a project like Daredevil, I was given the ability to tell the story myself and do full pencils. Honestly, the answer to your question is it happened naturally. The more you work, the better you get, especially in this field. And unless you have a gigantic ego, you're going to get better every day, a little bit.
Yeah, as long as your mind is always open to learning and that desire is there to improve and get better. Like you said, not grabbing that brass ring is a great thing because it always keeps you hungry. It always keeps you trying to get something that might not be attainable, but it's okay. You've always got something to go for. You know?
Absolutely, absolutely true. And the brass ring is always in front of my face, but I want to get to it. I want it to be dropped instead of me having to rip it down. I don't know if I'll ever get that. My wife thinks it'll happen when I'm a painter in my 70s, maybe.
Oh,
She says, "You're going to be a great painter one day." She might be right. But I don't know at what point, if it'll ever stop happening. I'm getting better every day. I do something I couldn't do the day before.
Right. That's great. Let's see. Storytellers is the greatest live show in comics. All right. Thank you, Brian.
Blevins, not related to Brett, are you? Is that Brett Blevins's? That can't be related.
No, they're not related. Because Brett was on my show last week.
Oh, okay.
That was a fun show.
That was a nice compliment. You're right. You're blushing, Graham. You're blushing. Come on.
Brett and I have a project that we're working on together for Aftershock.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Say hello for me. I haven't seen him in a long time. Great.
I will. JR, I love Superman Year One. Random question. What's your favorite Elvis song? Okay.
Hunka Burnin' Love. One of my favorites. Love it.
Frag
Excellent,
is here.
excellent. Look at that hair. What, Elvis's hair or mine?
He's talking
this is
about
all. Still got it. Fraga Boom. I love that name.
Do you know Dan? Dan Fraga? He worked at Marvel.
Oh, is that Dan Fraga?
Yeah, that's Dan Fraga.
Dan, how are you, buddy? Oh, shit. Best laugh I've had in a while. Thank you very much. Hope everybody's well, Frank.
Well, Dan's gearing up for Friday surgery, so.
Oh, hope that's not serious.
He's got kidney stones.
Oh, damn.
Oh, yeah, he just had one removed, and now I think he's got to go back for another.
Ouch. Speaking of Friday, I'm getting my vaccination on Friday, so I'm looking forward to that. Taking my father and my mother to get theirs, and the three of us are getting stuck. Yeah.
Excellent. Getting the jab in England. All right, for me, look and feel twice as large as it actually is. Also, the strongest with a Toth feel to it.
Wow, that is a compliment. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
That's some of the best. I haven't had a compliment like that in a while. When you get Toth mentioned, thank you very much. I'm going to have to tell my wife about that one. Thank you very much. And that part about the page looking larger, again, that comes, and Graham and I were talking about it, is you pull back sometimes, and it does expand the size of the paper. Mm-hmm. And speaking of large, as a Superman Year One, we did large paper. And I could have wallpapered 5 houses with the amount of paper we used. But suddenly the scenes felt that way. They felt like vistas.
Did you do twice up on that? Did you do twice up on that?
Not twice up. It's about 50% large, maybe about 1.5.
Interesting.
What the size of the paper was.
I did a project that was Golden Age size, twice up, back in the 80s, and that was amazing working that big. You can get a lot.
All I know is it's what's funny is getting used to it after about 20 or 30 pages. It was 160 total pages. When I got back to doing regular, maybe it was larger than a half up. When I got back to doing regular sized paper, 1117, it felt like I was working on a postage stamp. It was such a strange feel. But again, the panels are the same. Everything was relative. But thank you for that compliment, Vaughn. Thank you.
Howard and I talked about the actual real estate that you have to work with when you're telling a story in comics, and it's surprisingly small. How much space you have to tell a story, and
That's true.
I think that readers might not quite really grasp that aspect of it because
what Vaughn is saying is actually very cogent. That you have to make that feel like there's a large room, that there is large room in that story instead of being confined to the paper. Mm-hmm. That's a brilliant comment. That's a challenge in and of itself, let alone being a good artist. Yes, storytelling. It's part of being storyteller.
Yeah. Is there any writer you would like to work with that you haven't yet? This question is for both of you guys.
Alan Moore. I got to tell you a funny story about Alan Moore and me. I think it was back in 1984, 85. We sat down at a restaurant in London, and before he dangled his hair in my food, which made me want to bury the butter knife in his ear, we were discussing politics, and he did not like what I had to say. I voted for Reagan, I think, and that pissed him off. But then I had voted for Jimmy Carter too. I'm a registered independent. Anyway, he hated my guts. He still might hate my guts, but he's a brilliant talent. And to this day, I only want to work with the guy that hates my guts. I want to see if I can make him like me. So, I exaggerate to clarify, but the truth of the matter is I wouldn't mind working with Alan Moore. I really would like to see what he's got.
That's interesting. Interesting.
But he did dangle his hair in my food, ruined the whole meal.
Did he get the beard in there too?
I honestly don't know. All I know is he,
Would you like more soup, John?
If he sees this, I don't know if he'll remember it, but he's going to hate me even more.
Yeah, he ain't working with you. Oh, man, that's funny.
Great question. Thank you for that. Actually, it was a question to you, Graham, too, as well.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I really don't know. I really don't have an answer for that.
You got to come back and you got to mention that. You got to tell people, other than yourself, who do you want to work with? But I think you specified who you haven't worked with.
Yeah.
I even got a chance to work with Stan on the last FF story you ever did. So I've been really lucky. But again, the joke is that somebody that doesn't like me. So you got to think about who you would like to work with you haven't worked with.
I would have said Stan. I really would have liked to have had the opportunity to work with him and experience that. So I guess that would be my answer. It would be Stan, And
boss, thanks very much for that compliment. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate that.
Oh, somebody's NTM comments. I'm learning so much from this.
Nice.
Excellent.
I appreciate that. I listen. I learned stuff from Graham right now. I'm learning stuff. It's great. And if you are willing to learn, you'll always get better. That's the best thing about being an artist.
Absolutely. You've worked with many amazing inkers. Who do you think brought a new aspect to your work that you didn't expect? Also, who is your favorite inker to collaborate with?
Oh boy. All right. I'm going to. That's a great question to begin the conversation. And the favorite inker to collaborate with is my father, mostly because he fixed everything. But I got a chance to work with him, especially on Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau. Somebody asked me about the character.
Oh, I remember that.
That waitress that we met at the cafe around the corner from the Marvel office, who was an aspiring actress, just stunningly beautiful woman, and we put her in anyway. So we worked on that book together, and my father's just a brilliant artist. So I'd say he is the greatest I ever worked with. But I don't know. I've worked with so many, with Klaus, Danny, Mickey, Scott Hanna, Al Williamson. My God, Tom Palmer. I am walking on just brilliant footsteps with guys, and they've all fixed everything I've done. I don't know who I would pick right now for the next thing I'm doing. Schmuggy and Bimbo's only pencils. It's all charcoal pencils, all shading, black and white, no inks.
Oh, interesting.
So I wouldn't know who to choose from. It would depend on the product, the project that we work on. It might be specific to that. But great questions.
So Dan wants to know what's your favorite pencil?
Here it is. Believe it or not, this is a 30-year-old mechanical pencil. And the reason I got this, Dan, was because I was spending so much time sharpening my lead pointer in the sharpener. And somebody much smarter than me once said, "Are you an effing asshole? Just use a mechanical pencil with a 0.5. You wouldn't have to sharpen anything." My favorite pencil is right here. This is it. All of my mojo is it. If I lose this, I'm dead. I'll never draw it again. So this is an HB 0.5. And if you need to know.
If you slam it down, does it turn into a hammer? That's what I want to know. His mojo is in the pencil.
That's the truth. If I lose it, you ask my wife, I put it down in the house and forgotten where I put it. I will spend the whole day looking for it. I won't work until I find the effing pencil. It's true.
And what lead was it? An HB?
It's an HB.
Okay. Nice HB. Soft lead. Cool.
Yes.
Mike Myers liked you to explain the or expand on the prowler origin.
Oh, as a kid, I was after that thing with the Daredevil cover, I would sit down and just draw and do my own drawings. And I was scratching stuff out on the paper. It was summer vacation, and my father came over and watched and saw and said, "What is that?" I said, "This is the prowler." And it was just somebody in a complete bodysuit. You know, I didn't know how to draw any body parts, so I just had a guy in a bodysuit, but I had the prowler. And I forgot where I saw something that got me to that name, but it might have been a movie I was watching, and somebody was prowling around, and I may have had a moment. But my father volunteered to take it to Stan after I cried if he wouldn't, that kind of thing. I was just a little guy. Honestly, he took it on his own, took it to Stan, and Stan said, "Hate the artwork, love the name," and that was it.
Huh.
And that's it. There's no other part to it. So Stan didn't even remember my name half the time. So he could have been my brother Vic for all he knew at the time.
So I take it he didn't sign any checks over.
No, I was able to continue eating from my parents' refrigerator after that. Okay. They didn't charge me.
Oh, Billy Tucci's in the house. Hey, Billy.
Hey, boy. He's right near me. He could probably hear me yelling right now.
Yeah.
He's out here on Long Island with me.
Yeah, Bayport.
Yeah. Good to see you, Billy. How's everything going? Hope everybody's well.
Yeah,
Another
Billy
great
and I
artist. Love Billy's stuff.
Yeah, Billy's great. And we're going to do that, the professionals I told you about. Dan Frag is in that group too.
I may have to join you, but we can't talk about it. I may have to join you on that.
Okay. I'll send you a link.
I'll have to be very careful. I already explained.
Yes, I understand. Yes. That'll keep you guessing, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a lot of hails for Billy here.
Good man, Billy.
Billy.
Man. Love that last name. Nice Irish boy.
Yeah. I don't know if he told you this, but he was going to get one of those DNA tests. And he said, if he ever comes back with any Irish, because I'm Irish, he said, if he ever comes back with any Irish, he's taking over St. Patrick's Day. He's going to start talking with the brogue lad and the whole 9 yards.
Oh, God.
Like, oh, my God, we couldn't handle it, Billy, if you had any Irish blood in you. Oh, God, he's so funny.
Good man.
I love you all for doing these killer interviews. Well, thank you. Oh, here's one for you.
That's what happens when you have a great interviewer.
Stop. Please talk a little about the Daredevil run with Ann Nocenti.
Ann is still currently, she's still a brilliant writer. Ann was the editor on the book before she became the writer on the book. And she and I had been just getting to know each other professionally as we worked in the business. So she was familiar with what I did before she became the writer on the Daredevil book, or before I teamed up with her. And that worked so well because she was, as one of the editors, assistant editors, she would edit some of my stuff. She and I got to know each other before we began working together. She's a brilliant, brilliant person, and she knew what was great. And interestingly enough, she thought it was controversial, some of the subjects that she was bringing up. Nuclear nuclear problems and women's rights, etc. None of it was stuffed into anything. It wasn't forced on anybody. It was done well, which is what's so great about it. And then she was asking me what I thought about an idea for a character, what I thought about coming up with a character. Do you have any ideas? And Typhoid Mary, she said, I have a name for a character. What can you do? And she comes up with Typhoid Mary and lets me create Typhoid Mary. And I came up to her with a character called Shotgun, and I came up to her with a character called Blackheart. And she embraced it, and we worked together so well at that time. It was such a great give and take, but it was as simple as she and I knew each other before we worked together. Mm-hmm. And she's a brilliant lady, and there's no brilliant person that knows the ways about it, and a great writer. We had a good run, and I loved everything about it. But my favorite moment was when she said to me, "You have a story in mind?" I said, "No, but I have a one-act play that I've always wanted to finish writing it's called Beer with God." And my idea was that a guy, just the average everyday fireman, comes into a bar, sits down, and God sits down next to him. And she said, well, we can't do something that high profile, but how about we do Beer with the Devil, since we have Daredevil, and we can always use Mephisto. And that's brilliance.
Yeah, that's
so
smart.
We turned Beer with God into Beer with the Devil, and literally Typhoid Mary, a woman kisses Daredevil, and it turns out it was Mephisto the whole time, that kind of thing. And I got a chance to redo Mephisto into a demon instead of a guy with panties on. Sorry, the devil should not be wearing panties. I couldn't do that.
Tight.
So I got a demonic, and she let me do my demonic Mephisto. But that's the kind of thing. We had a great process together. I always loved working on that book with her. I had a great time with her.
Here's a great question. It actually comes from my brother. He and I grew up with your father's work.
Okay.
And we just loved your dad's work. I mean, it was the first artist that we both recognized. And we were like, oh, John Romita, we see his name there. And then we could spot his work anytime we saw it. We loved it. And he's a huge John Romita fan too. And so his question is, if aliens discover your work 100 years from now, what cover do you want them to see that defines you? And he wants me to answer the same question.
All right. Specifically, anything my father inked over me, I would be proud to show. Mm-hmm. If I was not allowed to do that, if I was precluded from using my father as a crutch, Spider-Man 600, the wraparound cover of him swinging past all the dark buildings with the windows lit. Mm-hmm. It's been turned into a poster, and I've given it to several people, and I'm most proud of that cover. Issue 600 of Amazing Spider-Man. Great question, though. Thank you very much, Chris.
My answer would be Detective Comics 711. That was okay. I had Batman standing in the foreground looking down at his computer screen, and in the background was a larger screen with all of his villains on it. It was inked by Tom Palmer, and it's probably been reprinted more times than just about anything that I've done.
Nice.
I really like that cover a lot.
And Klaus was the one that inked that issue 600, and I'm still very proud of that. But again, anything my father worked on, I would show off to anybody else. I've just been given a notification by my wife that I'm running an hour, and I didn't know it was going to be that quick and that fast. Can we go some more questions? And I didn't know if it was supposed to be an hour and a half or not. I apologize if I'm cutting it short.
No. It's all on your time frame, John. If you need to wrap it up.
Do this again? I would love to do this again. I'm really enjoying this.
What do you think, fans? You guys want to see JR on again? Huh? The answer is yes, sir.
I would love it. This has been, to show you how fast everything went, I had no idea it was an hour. I'm enjoying this. The great questions from the people following. Got a chance to see Billy Tucci's name and Dan Fraga's name. Love that stuff. And, of course, talking to somebody as talented as you, there is so much to learn from other artists, let alone competitors or peers. But when I go to a museum, I feel this big. Yet when I talk to other people in my business, it makes me feel this big because there's this great fraternity of artists, and you put us into a room and we will talk about each other's great strengths. Nobody will say you suck. will say, this is what you can do to get better. That's a camaraderie and that's a fraternity that I love. And to a man, I haven't met anybody that is a bad mouther, that is, unless they were a constructive criticism person, let's just say.
Right.
And yet talking to you right now, doing this, I embrace it every single time. I'll do it. You call me and I'll come running, just so you know.
Awesome.
Loved every bit about it.
I really do appreciate it. I hope you had
My
a good
pleasure. I'll even comb my hair next time, I promise.
We're holding you to that.
All right. Like I said, let me know. Everybody, thanks very much for the great questions, and I apologize for talking too much. I have a problem with that. I have a big mouth, and I don't know what side of the family it comes from.
So you need to run now then?
I got to get going. I got 5 more minutes, actually.
5 minutes. All right. Let's see if we can get a couple more questions in here. Here's a tough question. Did either of you ever have any people who completely destroyed your work? So we want to take a pass on that one?
Yeah, and honestly, no, I never have. Oh my God, that's a hysterical question. Do you really think we'd give it an honest answer? Yeah. Oh my God. H,
I have, and I'm not telling you.
Actually, I do have an answer to that. The inker that destroyed my work was me. Just so you know, I destroyed my own work with my own inks.
Oh, I've certainly been guilty of that as well.
Oh, I still got the poster up there, and I cringe when I look at it.
Which poster?
All right. I keep it up here to keep myself from getting too full of myself. Punisher. It was I forgot the name of the book. Forgot it. But anyway, it was Punisher, Ghost Rider, and Wolverine. Okay. And Howard Mackey was the writer on the book, so I did a poster, and I penciled and inked it, and I cringe every time I look at it.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not happy with it.
It looks pretty good from here.
Yeah, it's not bad. Somebody probably fixed it. It wasn't me.
Was it ever at your dad's house?
Exactly right. No, I see things just like we talked. I see things I could do better now than I did then. I'd love to do it again.
Yeah, I mean, do you find yourself ever looking at your old work and saying, "God, that sucks. That sucks," or do you go back and look at your stuff and say, "You know what?" Like old stuff, and say, "You know, that was pretty good."
Yeah, great example. I used a couple of the Eternal characters on a cover that I just did. And I looked back at the Eternals book, and I said, "Holy crap! I don't think I slept for 6 months." And Danny and Mickey did the inks on it, and I think Danny probably had gray hair because of that. We put a lot into it, and I look back and I say, "Holy crap! I don't know if I could put that much into it and get it out on time. Who was that guy?"
Right.
But I do look back and say, "Holy crap! I can't believe they printed that." Happens to everybody.
Absolutely. Graham Nolan, I would have a heart attack if John actually did artwork for something I wrote.
Is that Jimmy Lee or Jay Lee? Jay Lee or Jim Lee? No, it's Jay Lee.
It's Jay. Yeah, I don't think it's.
Yeah, it's not JAI though.
No. Is there any character you hate drawing?
Oh God, yes. The Jack of Hearts. I want to find the guy that created the Jack of Hearts and punch his mother in the mouth.
Yeah, yeah. For me, it was.
Actually, you know who I struggled with? I struggled with Aunt May. I don't know why.
Really?
I struggled drawing. I did not like drawing Aunt May. I don't know why.
Huh.
I don't know. Maybe because I never met a Jewish aunt. I don't know.
I never liked drawing Azrael. Joe Quesada designed that damn costume, and he only had to draw it once. And that son of a bitch, I'm going to punch him in the mouth when I see him someday for designing that thing.
There you go. So the answer to your question, Victor, is when you get a real tedious costume that doesn't make any sense when you do the back and the force and so on. If you have to have something that sculpts and they don't do that, drives you crazy and you want to scream at the guy that designed the character. I agree with you.
Cecil says, first comic I ever read was 176 with Cyclops fighting an octopus on the cover.
Oh my God. That was my first X-Men cover, I think.
Is that right?
I think so.
All right, Cecil, you got in on the ground floor with JR's covers there. Very nice.
Excellent. Thanks, Cecil. Appreciate that. All right, one last one, and I gotta go be a husband.
Okay, here we go. Here's a good one. What's your favorite film from an artistic standpoint?
Finding Nemo. One of the greatest movies of all time, Finding Nemo. Artistic standpoint, I say this out of sheer love for the film, and I love film noir. On the Waterfront. One of my favorite films of all time.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
That's right. Have you seen my Bane? That's right.
Have you drawn Bane?
Yeah, I've done a couple of, not in a book per se, but I think he was guest starring. I might have done a couple of images inside, but not a book with Bane as the main character.
Oh, I gotta look at that. I have not seen your Bane.
I gotta go back and check out which one it was, but not even positive. I think it was on a cover too. Did I do a cover? I don't know. Howard, did I do it on a cover? I don't remember.
Well, I'm gonna have to look on the interweb and see.
There you go, the interweb. That's right. All right, I gotta go try and make my wife smile because she's mad at me for talking too much. But
no worries, bud. Hey, again, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Trust me, all my pleasure.
Project you and Howard are doing, and anytime you want to come back on, the door is open for you.
All right, and the bro guys, let me know when you're gonna do that, and I'll see if I can. I will try to make sense of this.
I will. I'll text you the link when we establish it.
You got it.
All right,
well, it's great talking to you. Great talking to you. Thanks again.
You bet.
So long,
thanks,
everybody.
John. We'll see you.
Be well.
I can put you. There we go. All righty, gang. We still got some more stuff in here in the comment section. I want to thank John for coming on and giving a fantastic interview. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let's see what we got here. I'm loving this show with one of my favorite artists. John motivates me to draw lots and gets better, which helped me finish my first indie book, The Devil Killer. Excellent. Mindy Porter, I'm a first year at the Kubert School. Excellent. What's your opinion of some of our graduates you may have encountered, and do you have any advice for a growing artist hoping to break into the industry? Well, I can answer that one, Mindy, since I went to the Kubert School. I didn't graduate. I ran out of money. I went to school actually with Adam and Andy Kubert, and Lee Weeks and Bart Sears, and we had a really couple of great classes there that turned out some really great talents. I have very fond memories of the school. When we went there, it was the mansion. It wasn't the middle school or high school. It was. I guess that's now housing, but yeah, it was way back in '81. So the school turns out really great talent, and the advice for a growing artist hoping to break into the industry is create your own stuff and own it. I would say, if you can self-publish yourself, crowdfund it, so that you own everything. Start off with smaller publishers, perhaps, if you want to start making a name for yourself and start building a following. That's a good way to do it. But even that is still old school. The internet is out there. You can reach millions of people with social media, with YouTube, with there's various other things I don't even know about because I'm too old. But there's a lot of stuff out there to get your work out there. And there's no longer any reason to give your ideas to big companies, because all it takes is a great idea to get it in front of the right people, and bam, before you know it, you could have a movie made out of it. So just work hard, work smart, understand your market, and don't give away your ideas. Graham Nolan, which character you wanted to draw that isn't Marvel or DC? Tarzan and Doc Savage. Those are two characters I'd really like to draw. Let's see. Bausch really liked JR's inks. It's pure JR. Yeah, I agree, Bausch, that I always prefer when the artists ink themselves so that the artwork is pure. It's fun to collaborate and stuff, but I think the work is pure. No disrespect. Why Graham look younger than John Romita Jr.? Well, I am a little younger. Just a couple years, I think. Thanks for having JR on. You're very welcome. Frag Finatra. Awesome talk. Thank you. I'm at a bar. I hear nothing. Nothing. Well, I should be with you. Do you think it's a travesty that the big two stop feeding work to artists just as they become masters of their crafts? I think it's a travesty that the big two have destroyed the industry so that there's not enough work to give out to masters of the craft, so that they have to give it out to lower page rate artists. There's a lot of travesty to go around there. A lot of people saying we definitely need a part 2. Everybody's saying, hell yeah, they want John back. And I agree. Okay. I answered that one. Cecil says, great show. Thank you, Cecil. Fragaboom, the professionals. Yes, that's our rotating YouTube channel show. That it's me, Dan Fraga, Aaron Lepresti, Art T. Bear, Andy Smith, Billy Tucci. I feel like there's 7 guys. I feel like I'm missing somebody. Who am I missing? If I'm missing you, I'm sorry. Hey, Frank, good to see you. Glad you enjoyed that. Dale A says, no, I said RT Bear. That was fantastic. Graham has best comic interviews on YouTube. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm glad you guys enjoyed that. I'm having a great time interviewing all these fantastic storytellers, getting inside their heads. I'm like William Shatner on Raw Nerve. Any of you guys ever see that show? William Shatner's interview show, Raw Nerve? I love that show. He was really, really good. Bosch agrees with me regarding inks and the purity of having the artist do it himself. Might not be as slick as some people do it, but it's still them, you know? How do you structure your day, week, in regards to completing comic book pages? That's a good question, Chauncey. But I'm very structured. You know, I always keep pretty much a regular day. I get up in the morning, go to the gym. Well, first I have breakfast, then I go to the gym. I come back, shower up, then I start my day, and I'll usually work up until dinner time. If it's winter and there's no chores to do outside, I'll go back to work after dinner. But I don't pull all-nighters. I don't do any of that nonsense. I try to keep a regular working day so that I can spend time with my wife. And when my kids were in the house, spend times with them. But yeah, I want to spend time with her, and I try to do that in a regular work week. But I do work Saturdays. I work every Saturday. That's usually the day I have to do my Sunshine State strip. David Williams says, I think you may have hit the zenith of big guest. It's only downhill from here, Graham. Yeah, we'll see about that, pal. I had Chuck on. Chuck was on earlier in the show. You need to go back, if you haven't subscribed, David, and go check out the videos of all the other interviews before you start throwing shade on me, pal. If need be, let's start a GoFundMe page so Mrs. Romita will say yes. Any chance for a Mark Schultz interview? Well, there's always a chance. I just have to reach out and ask him. Thank you so much for your advice. I'm sure if you reach out to Anthony Marquez, he'd love to interview and JR via Google Meet with the Google Cubert students. Actually, Anthony did reach out to me. I was going to do an in-person talk at the school last spring, but COVID hit, so that had to be shut down. But certainly, if Anthony wanted to reschedule it as a video thing, I'd be happy to do that as well. Can we still get Alien Alamo, sir? Yes, you can. The campaign is still live until Friday at midnight. Friday's my birthday, so I'm going to have a little birthday closeout party, I think, on Ethan's stream. So we're hoping to close out big. So if you want to get Alien Alamo, please hurry up and get on board that. Let's since you mention it, and I'm not one above shilling. I'm going to put the link right here. There we go. The link to Alien Alamo is now in the comment section, so you guys can click on that and go right to it. So yeah, please come on board. Do I know Todd McFarlane? No, I have never met Todd. Death Metal Hero loves Sunshine State strips. Man, they're fun, especially being in the Sunshine State. Well, it's my love letter to Florida, having grown up there. And I eventually want to get back there, particularly in the winters. At some point, I want a snowbird. Oh, Dave, you're putting me on the spot. I haven't figured out what this week's Western is for Saturday morning Western Roundup. Still working on that. But I can tell you what next week's Storytellers is going to be. Going to have the amazing Ron Garney on. He just finished a huge campaign for Berserker with Keanu Reeves. And Ron is a consummate storyteller, great artist, and a good guy. So he's going to be on next Wednesday. No, I take that back. Next Wednesday is the high holy holiday of St. Patrick's Day. So there won't be a show Wednesday. There'll be a show Tuesday. Ron will be on Tuesday. Yeah, Blazing Saddles is a good Western, but I've just got monetized. I don't want to get canceled by by YouTube by doing that movie. John and I were talking about conventions. We miss them. I miss the personal interaction with the fans. Although I have to say, interacting this way has been very interesting and fun too, because you can reach so many more people. But the other thing too is when you go to cons, you get to meet your colleagues too, the guys and friends that you haven't seen for a while, and hang out and tell stories, just like we're doing here. Have drinks together. So I do miss that. But I have no plans for conventions until the restrictions are done. I live in New York State, and it's a pain in the butt if I go anywhere to come back into the state. There's still quarantining and testing and all that crap. So I'm not planning on any shows until that stuff is lifted. Have I seen HUD with Paul Newman? Yes, I have. Not a huge fan of it. Ha! See? Keeps going up, Dave. I'm going to wait till they get to the pinnacle, and then I'm going to have you on. What do you think of that? Looks like the con in Dallas in September is going to happen. I just sent back my guest registry for the show. Oh, cool. Is that the North Texas show that they used to have? That was a great show. Chris ran a great show there, and he took us out for the most amazing barbecue I've ever had. Oh, so good. Am I going to do a live drawing anytime soon? No, I think those are boring, to be honest. You know, I don't have a camera set up for that to focus it down. And yeah, it's not just not my thing. I don't like to do that kind of stuff. I don't mind doing sketches and drawings live. You know, like at conventions and people watching me. I just think that, you know, staring at it at a screen, I don't like to really watch people do it myself. So, whoop, 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 whoop. Dan resembles that mark. Okay, I think we've got everybody covered here. All right. That should do it, gang. Again, thanks to John Romita Jr. for coming on, and thank you everybody for coming into the chat and posting questions and stuff. That was great. Thanks for my brother for popping in and having that great question for both John and I. We go back in comics a long way, and I don't have my Saturday Morning Western Roundup movie locked down yet. So if you haven't subscribed to the station, do it. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button now, so you will have the updates. And I'll post what movie it is as soon as I figure that out. And then Tuesday night, remember Ron Garney will be back here at our usual time of 8 o'clock, but only on Tuesday night. And then everybody else, especially all you Irish out there, enjoy your St. Patrick's Day. We will definitely do so here. Corned beef and cabbage is on the menu, Irish soda bread, and plenty of Guinness and Irish whiskey. So it's going to be a fun time. I hope you guys have a great one too. And I will see you Saturday for Saturday Morning Western Roundup with our mystery movie. Have a great evening, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.